Welcome back. Let's talk about what's next for the Catholic Church, with the key question being whether there will be a continuation of Pope Francis's efforts to make the Church more open or a return to more traditional tendencies. Helping us parse through all of that is Elena Procario-Foley, Professor of Catholic and Jewish Studies at Iona University. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for inviting me to the conversation.
Of course. So let's start with the big philosophical question. What will the next Pope do? We'll talk about the selection in a moment with another professor, but what will the next Pope do? Are they likely to continue some of these reform efforts, pull back? Do you have any sense of that?
It's hard to read the tea leaves. That is exactly what the cardinals will be thinking about over the course of the next couple of weeks. I think that Pope Francis did some very extraordinary things in his time as Pope, such as the recently concluded Synod of Synods, which involved women voting for the first time on equal footing with the ordained men at a synod. That is an opening to dialogue and an opening to change that is significant. So that's just one example. I think that the bishops will be praying deeply on Pope Francis's legacy, what it has meant, and figuring out what the future will be. It's an open future. It's an institution that's steeped in the past, but the past doesn't define us entirely. Each Pope brings a new perspective, and Pope Francis, in an extraordinary way that reached people outside of Catholicism, refocused everyone on what the fundamental message was. And the fundamental message is the gospel. And the fundamental message of the gospel for Pope Francis is respecting the dignity of each human person, making sure there are no impoverished in the world, and much more. So looking towards the future, the cardinals will be deciding who can carry that on.
And one of the ways that he tackled that mission you were just talking about, and he took on these big picture issues like climate change, like migration, like global poverty. And one of the ways he did that, and we were talking about this a little bit offline, was by working with other faith leaders. So, to what extent do we expect the Catholic Church and the next Pope to continue this sort of interreligious cooperation to tackle big picture issues?
That, I think, will continue without a doubt. In the 1960s, the Catholic Church gathered for what is known as the Second Vatican Council from 1962 to 1965. And that council set the Roman Catholic Church on a firm path of dialogue with all religions. So one of the high points of Pope Francis's time in office was his meeting with the Grand Imam Ahmed al-Tayyib of Egypt, and they wrote a short but very powerful document called On Human Fraternity together. So that was significant. Relationships with the Jewish world have been a priority of the Church since the Second Vatican Council 60 years ago in October 1965, when they issued a major document on dialogue with other religions. So I think, and then his work within Christianity with the Orthodox Christian community on the environment, on climate change, has also been significant. So I'm confident that the next pontiff will continue the outreach to the world hand in hand with other religious leaders to reduce poverty, reduce violence, and save the planet.
So you expect those efforts to continue, but where I think there's more question, and we only have about a minute here for this last topic, is the continuation of the Church being a more open place for LGBTQ couples and for those who have been divorced. Any sense as to whether that will be reversed, will continue? Do we know? Is it possible to know?
It's not entirely possible to know, but I think Pope Francis has set us on a path of dialogue, of opening, of listening, and respecting each person's dignity as they were made in the image of God, as Pope Francis would say. So I think we are cautiously hopeful that the next pontiff will continue the pastoral approach to such sensitive issues.
Well, thank you, Elena, for joining us. I know our time was short, but I appreciate that context, especially those big picture global issues. And coming up, the search for the next pope will break down what you need to know and some of the names to watch for. Back in a moment.